So before you watch this video, make sure you have a thorough understanding of our stoichiometry calculations. The next topic that we're going to be discussing is limiting reagents. So that's an application of stoichiometry. And to introduce this topic, we're going to look at a little bit of a silly exercise called the Stoichiometry of Dr. Rose's Peanut Butter Cookies, Part 2. So when we look at this particular problem, first we have a recipe. So just like a balanced chemical equation, our recipe is going to allow us to relate all of the components. We know that 1 cup of peanut butter plus 7.1 ounces of sugar plus 1 egg plus 5 milliliters of vanilla will allow us to make 18 cookies. In part 1 of this exercise, we just looked at the stoichiometry, meaning we just looked at the relationships between any two components in that recipe. Now what we have to do, in order to apply what we know about stoichiometry to limiting reagents, now we have to look at how all of the ingredients relate to one another in order to make the 18 cookies. So in my kitchen, if I have 5 cups of peanut butter, 7 eggs, 3 pounds of sugar, and 20 milliliters of vanilla, the question that we need to answer is, how many cookies can I make? And in order to understand how many cookies I can make, I'm going to look systematically at the relationships between each of my starting materials with that amount of product. So for example, in my kitchen, if I first want to understand the relationship between peanut butter and cookies, I can do a calculation. I have 5 cups of peanut butter. If I look at the relationship now between peanut butter and cookies, I need cups of peanut butter in the denominator, and I need cookies in the numerator. My recipe relates both of those ingredients with the units that I have, and that recipe tells me that 1 cup of peanut butter allows me to make 18 cookies, so that when I do the calculation, the answer that I get is 90. So that means that I have enough peanut butter in my kitchen to make 90 cookies. I can make any amount of cookies that's less than 90, but nothing more. Now I'm going to look at eggs. In my balanced chemical equation, I see that 1 egg relates to 18 cookies. In my kitchen, I have 7 eggs. So if I have 7 eggs, I can relate eggs to cookies. Eggs in the denominator, cookies in the numerator, and my recipe tells me that 18 cookies require 1 egg. When you do the calculation, you find that I have enough eggs in my kitchen to make 126 cookies. Remember that I can make anything less than 126 cookies, but I can't make anything more than 126 cookies. For sugar, in my kitchen, I have 3 pounds of sugar. And my recipe relates ounces of sugar to cookies. So that means that in order to do this relationship, I have to convert my pounds of sugar to ounces. So I know that 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. That conversion factor was given to you right here. Now that I have ounces of sugar, I can relate it to cookies. So my next conversion factor is going to get rid of my units of ounces of sugar, convert to cookies. And from my recipe, I see that 7.1 ounces of sugar relate to 18 cookies. So that's going to give me 18 over 7.1. And when I do the calculation, I get 122 cookies. I can make any amount of cookies that is less than this, but nothing more. Finally, for vanilla. My recipe tells me that I need 5 milliliters of vanilla to make 18 cookies. The problem tells me that I have 20 milliliters of vanilla in my kitchen. So 20 milliliters of vanilla is what I have in my kitchen. 5 milliliters of vanilla allow me to make 18 cookies. When I do the calculation, I find that I have enough vanilla to make 72 cookies. So now what I need to do is I need to look at all of the information that I've just calculated. I have enough peanut butter to make 90 cookies. I have enough eggs to make 126 cookies. I have enough sugar for 122 cookies and enough vanilla for 72 cookies. So these are the amounts that I'm going to be comparing. Each of these amounts represent the maximum amount of product that I can make based on my starting material. For each of these, I can always make an amount that is less than that maximum amount, but I can't make anything more. So that as I compare these amounts, I have enough peanut butter to make 90 cookies. I have enough eggs to make the 90 cookies. I'll have eggs left over. I have enough sugar to make the 90 cookies, but notice I don't have enough vanilla to make the 90 cookies. So that as I compare each of these potential amounts of product, I'm looking for the smallest. The smallest amount of product, which I see here, is the 72 cookies that comes from the vanilla. So based on that information, I now know two things. First of all, I know what's called my limiting reagent. In this case, the vanilla is my limiting reagent. Whenever you identify the limiting reagent in your problem, that's always going to tell you two things. First, your limiting reagent. It's going to be completely consumed. As I make 72 cookies, I'm going to use all of the vanilla that I have in my kitchen. Next, the limiting reagent also controls the amount of product you make. So that in all of my calculations, it no longer matters that I can make 90 cookies with peanut butter or 126 cookies with eggs. It only matters that I can make 72 cookies based on the amount of vanilla that I have. So the vanilla in this case is going to be my limiting reagent. The other thing that I know at this point is that this 72 cookies, this is going to be what I call my theoretical yield. That means that's the maximum amount of product that I'm going to be expecting out of this reaction, 72 cookies. Now, the other thing that we'll often be asked to do in these types of problems is a calculation about a percent yield. A percent yield is one way that we can assess how successful our chemical reaction may have been. And the formula for your percent yield is the following. Your percent yield is equal to the actual yield divided by your theoretical yield times 100. Okay, the percent yield is going to be equal to your actual yield divided by your theoretical yield times 100. So the final question on this exercise says to calculate Dr. Rose's percent yield if she made 65 cookies. So this 65 cookies, this is going to be my actual yield. Up here, this 72 cookies, this is my theoretical yield. So that when I do the calculation, I'm going to take my 65 cookies divided by my 72 cookies times 100, and that means that my percent yield here is going to be 90.3%.